Welcome to the Spaghetti Wall podcast, where we dive into life.
Both the messy parts and the moments of joy, and everything in between. I'm Jason Wilcox, licensed clinical social worker.
And I'm Dr. Tansei Lee, a licensed clinical psychologist. Today, we're going to be talking about loneliness and how to cope with loneliness.
And why do you think that's such an important topic for our audience?
I think the weather really makes me feel like this topic is very important. It's gloomy. This time of year, most people feel the low mood kicking in. And I think that can really contribute to feeling lonely in your body.
And I think it's interesting, the take that you pitched on this topic is when you're in a relationship and you're feeling lonely.
Yeah, I think I've had several instances myself where I was in a partnership and I still felt lonely, and there were many factors that contributed to that. So I think it's important for me to talk about this because there is a difference between being alone and feeling lonely.
Even when you have people around.
Yes. And I don't know if other people might relate to this, but I felt it's really important to share.
So what do you think is the first tip out there if you're feeling lonely and you're in a relationship?
I think it's important to take some time to just kind of evaluate your inventory of like, where are you feeling the loneliness and how you might feel that sense of loneliness. So, for example, with me, when I had shared with you, Jason, that like, oh, sometimes I feel lonely and alone. And it was more about missing my girlfriends from childhood and not having time with them. And we're all like living in different states. And so, you took it as like, you're not lonely. You have us, Tan. And I was like, oh, well, honey, it's not that. It's like, I really miss my girl time. And so I think it's important for us to like discern what the need is there and the feeling of disconnection from others. So it might be with girl time, it might be family time, it might be even like quality time with your children if you guys are, split or far from each other.
Yeah, so just kind of doing a self-inventory of what is causing this loneliness. And that's where I would actually encourage people to start as well, is what is going on internally that's giving you an experience of loneliness.
Right. It's like a feeling. And I think sometimes that can lead to feeling depressed. You're convinced that you are alone because this feeling is so heavy sometimes.
Yeah, if you do start first just going, what's going on with me? Then you can start identifying, what do you need? Is it that you need to go hang out with some friends? Is it that you need more time with your partner? Is it that you aren't getting connection at all with anybody, even your partner? Or is it something different, like you're not doing things that you love to do? So if you take the time to kind of see what's going on within you, you might be able to find the solution easier. I've worked with some people where they felt really lonely in the relationship and they couldn't quite identify why. And after working with them, what we found is they just didn't have a lot of like hobbies or things that they love to do in their life. And so they like relied on their partner to entertain them instead of identifying, hey, how do I entertain myself? How do I go and do things that I really enjoy? And when they filled in that part of their life, it became much more fulfilling that when they did spend time with their partner or their friends, they had this other aspect of their life of how they entertained self and engaged in their own hobbies and their own things that brought them joy in life. And that relieved some of the loneliness. If you do a self-check-in and if you identify that it comes down to the fact that you're really not getting a lot of time with your partner, there would be really important things to implement. First off, have you been very explicit with your partner that you want more time with them? If you haven't, that would be really important to have a conversation about. If you have been explicit about wanting more time, your partner, they might be someone that they're just busy and they're engaged in life in a way that's hard for them to kind of break away from it. So if you've been explicit saying, hey, I want more time, you might also want to try to take the next step and say, these are things I really want to do with you. Hey, could we break away and do this thing? Could we break away and do that thing? Another tip would be to make sure that sometimes our lives as adults, there's a lot. And so it gets easier if something's scheduled. So do you have something scheduled? Do you have a time that's dedicated to you and your partner? Like Tan and I, for example, we have two different times that we dedicate, and it's every Friday. We go out for lunch as a lunch date. That's really important to us. So it's our date time. We might have others here and there, but that one is like a scheduled one that for the most part, we make sure we do. The other one that we have is once we get kids down, we try to get them down semi early, is then we go have us time. That's more just, you know, things that we want to do that we spend together in the evening after everybody's in bed. And that's both of those times are kind of scheduled to where it is us time to make sure that we're spending it together.
And, our values is also building memories and having family times with kids. So normally on the weekends or Fridays, we evenings, we try to also check in with kids and ask them about how they want the weekend to look like. And so sometimes we get some bonus time together. We have teenagers, they're just like, no, we don't want to do anything as a family. We're going to have friends over. We're going to go hang out with our boyfriend. And so sometimes we get bonus time together, you and I.
And I think that is another point to make that sometimes we might be feeling lonely because we have all these kids and they're all busy too, and we want to engage with them. So it's the same thing, applying it there. And we do that, as Tan mentioned. We make sure that we have time set aside to be with the kids and hang out with the kids and engage with them too. But that's another aspect of life where you can have engagement and make sure that do you have time blocked out to spend with the kids? Some families, for example, like to make sure that everybody comes to dinner and that it's dinner time that they talk and visit and meet. Some families like to make sure that there's an evening once a week that is family time, that all of you get together and there's certain activities you do together, but it's spent together. So these are other aspects. If you're looking at your life and you're like, man, I'm feeling lonely, but you have people in your life, are you being explicit you want more time or figuring out time? Do you have dedicated time that's scheduled? Have you figured out ways to engage with each other? And I think I would throw one other thing out there is that sometimes it gets difficult because, for example, a partner who loves the outdoors and always out there, and then the other partner loves things like cuddling at home and doing things that are like, I don't know, knitting or crocheting or something. And these two partners don't have a lot of the same interests. And so it gets a little complicated. Well, then it becomes important that if you want more time together, to really take the time to talk about what are things out there that you both might enjoy and start trying to discover those. Maybe it's new things. You guys start looking up and just saying, hey, let's try these new things and see what we do like. But the goal would be to try to discover together things that you would enjoy together.
I think that's a great point. Your last point, Jason, I think I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into is that when you have mixed interests in activities, and I think it's important to look at some internal barriers that may keep you from being willing to discuss explicitly about these activities or even being willing to say, hey, I kind of think I feel resentment towards my partner because every time I have to do their activity and every time I propose that activity, they don't want to do it. And so sometimes we're unconsciously holding this resentment and grudge, and that can be an internal barrier for connecting and being willing to spend more time. And then we sink into this feeling of loneliness because yourself or your partner might be zoning out, not hearing your partner when they're talking to you and feeling like kind of you're not present. Sometimes people might feel distracted during a conversation. Like these are just signs of like disassociation and depersonalization, feeling like, oh, like I'm here, but I'm not fully here. These are just some indicators that maybe the loneliness is present and a good time to pause and do that self inventory. But yeah, it's just like having some unconscious thing blocking you from wanting to spend that time or holding back honesty regarding your likes or dislike or feeling like some things are imbalanced when it comes to compromising on quality time.
You know, you said something in there I think is really important. And this goes back to understanding each other and how to connect with each other. It's understanding that there's things that you might really enjoy talking about that your partner doesn't, or vice versa. And so it's not going to get you guys anywhere if you force yourself to try to be in a position of doing something you really don't like. And so it becomes important to speak with our partners and say, hey, this is something I'm struggling to engage with. Or, is there a different topic that you would prefer to talk about? But it's important to just be explicit with this and have honest conversations. For example, I'll go to talk to Tan about work sometimes after work, and she's already been doing work all day, and she'll be explicit with me and say something like, can we just not talk about work right now? And that helps me know, hey, that's not something she's ready to listen to or want to talk about, so that I know that's not a topic to talk about. So if I want to engage with her, then I just discover a different topic or ask her what she wants to talk about. But if we honor each other and are explicit about these things, it gives us an opportunity to find things that both of us want to engage in, so that we do have these engaging conversations where one person isn't feeling like they have to just sit there and act like they're listening, or the other person is just a talking head, but you guys are actually engaging and listening to each other.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of those moments, and I've learned and practiced to be explicit with Jason by saying, like, my head is just too full and overwhelmed with the day's work. Sometimes we have 8 to 10 hour days. So in those moments, concretely, I usually just say, I just want to lay here. And sometimes we'll be holding hands. Sometimes he'll massage my neck. So it's really important to say, I really want this time with you, and sometimes it's okay to just sit in silence and be together. I like that.
But it's important to find out what each other want
Mm.
and be explicit of your needs and hear your partner's needs and desires and preferences. When you know those, then you guys can find the common ground to connect on something that you both feel good about and you both want to connect on. And it's the same thing with activities, going back to that point. When you can look at what are activities you both want to do, then you're finding things that you can do together.
I have an example from, an individual that shared with me that their partner usually likes after work, like drinking some beer and watching the new TV like really loud or playing music really loud. And, they are in a different spectrum where they want it to be quiet, they want to read, they want to crochet. And they've shared with me that for years they would just do this because they want to spend that time with their partner. But this partner has not been willing to change this kind of routine of theirs after work. And so she was able to tell me she held some resentment for him not being willing to do an activity with her, go on a walk, try a class. And so she was able to find a balance by saying, hey, twice a week, I'm going to go do something independently. And that made her time with him those other times where she was willing to parallel play and be present and put on her, headphones and just be with him because he was unwilling to do stuff with her. So she actually found a way to not feel so lonely by doing what you said, Jason, was like finding other things that will fill her cup and being okay with not doing 7 days a week of what he wants, but even just 2, 3 days of what she wanted to do. Her time with him felt more present and fulfilling.
Yeah, and that's really important to do. Again, it's really important to recognize that your partner isn't the responsible party to relieve loneliness, but they are a partner in life to engage with you. There's a fine difference of recognizing that you are the responsible party to take care of your desire of doing things. And if that means with your partner and you guys come to mutual grounds, awesome. If that means finding things that you really enjoy alone, awesome. If that means, hey, go make some friends and go out with friends once in a while so that you can get out and engage with other people, great. But at the end of the day, it's identifying what is it that you need? And then how do you find either common grounds or other ways to get those needs?
I think you're helping me remember the other topic that comes to mind when you feel lonely within a relationship is that doubt spiral. So if I had people tell me, if I feel this detached from my partner, does that mean we're not meant to be? Like, should I break up with them? Is this not working out? Like, should I really be in this relationship? So they start having this doubt spiral. It's really interesting. And so I think, I would like folks to really pay attention to that. are you having a doubt spiral based on your feeling of loneliness and then attributing this feeling to the fault of, your partner, or that there's something wrong with the relationship and you should just end it?
Well, and I think that also goes into a topic we mention in most podcasts is our negative core beliefs. And again, if you're not sure what that is yet and haven't heard our other podcasts, I'd encourage you to go listen to what negative core beliefs are. But our negative core belief can actually contribute to loneliness. So if it starts saying something really negative about self, we're going to be looking possibly towards our partner to relieve that negative core belief. And if they don't operate in a way that does that, we're going to start feeling lonely because that negative core belief is getting louder and more intense inside. So we're displacing this responsibility and the feeling of that negative core belief on our partner. And that can create other problems too. Because if you don't deal with that negative core belief that's at the bottom of it, you're going to keep pushing on your partner to try to resolve it, and they can't do that.
Jason, what you're talking about is what I call the attachment panic trauma response. And so, you know, you start to panic because you feel something is not right within the relationship. And the trauma response here is reassurance seeking. So you start to seek that reassurance from your partner. And when you're not getting it, the attachment panic grows bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So we're feeding into this negative belief. And then the reassurance seeking behavior is actually the kind of maladaptive way to respond instead of checking in and finding reassuring things and validating things that are positive about your relationship and the strengths within that.
Right. It's noticing that if your mind is saying, oh, my partner's not spending enough time with me or doing enough with me or listening to me enough or engaging with me enough, therefore he doesn't love me, she doesn't love me, I'm not good enough because of this behavior they're exhibiting. If you're having those kinds of feelings and thoughts, it's going to start causing what Tan's talking about. You're going to get more reactive. You're probably going to feel more lonely. You're probably going to feel more pain and hurt, but it's caused because of what's happening internally to you, and it actually has nothing to do with your partner.
Yeah, Dr. Sue Johnson, she's the author of Hold Me Tight. And this concept is based off of like emotionally focused therapy. But she has a really beautiful worksheet or diagram that shows this fight cycle. And it's labeled like, yeah, when this behavior is happening from my partner, I believe this negative, and I'm doing these behaviors that are maladaptive to get this need met, but it's not working out. And it's just feeding that cycle of negative belief and loneliness and validating all the all the bad things and insecurities that make us feel stuck in that dark place.
Which brings us right back to always the first step here, if you are feeling lonely, is to start with self.
The nugget and the takeaway for our listeners would be, I hope, that loneliness is an emotion, and it's an emotion that is normal and that we all will feel in our lifetime. And it's not one to be afraid of. And it's like all emotions that we work through, they're all temporary. And if this feeling of loneliness is prolonged and chronic, I would say the takeaway is to do a self inventory, do some of these steps so that you can try to work your way out of that feeling of heavy loneliness.
Yeah, by kind of starting with self, then looking outwards, looking at what can you do about it, being explicit with others on your needs and desires, preferences, and work from inside to outside.
I think, for context, like hopefully our listeners know that we are licensed professional therapists. I'm a psychologist, and so we're coming from a place of not just giving tools and tips, but from a place of here are some things to look out for because we want to support folks in working through these feelings of heaviness and catching them, and also providing some guidance and providing some adaptive tools to work within what you're feeling and going through, and know that you're not alone.
Yeah, and we help people with this in therapy. We talk about these kind of concepts in our couples training and places like that. So these are places out there if you look for trainings or therapy that can also help. If you found this session helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real conversations about mental health, happiness, and how we keep going even when life gets tangled. Until next time, keep showing up, stay curious, and remember, the mess is the method.